Welcome to Better Life Path, the podcast where science, spirituality, and conscious living come together. I'm Melanie Vee, and I'm here to explore what it really means to live well, not just on the surface, but at the level of your mind, your body, and your consciousness. If you're ready to think deeper, feel better, and live more intentionally, you're in the right place. Welcome to Better Life Path. I'm your host, Melanie Vee. Some of you may be listening while driving to work or taking a walk, folding laundry, sitting in traffic, or simply getting a few moments to yourself, and I really want to thank you for being here. Launching this podcast is both exciting and a little scary for me. This podcast represents years of personal experiences, lessons learned the hard way, professional development, spiritual growth, and a deep desire to help people improve their quality of life. My goal for the Better Life Path podcast is to create a space for honest conversations about our health, our wellness, resilience, stress, personal growth, spirituality, and what it really means to live well. Nobody wants to just survive or get through another day hoping that tomorrow will be better, only to lose faith in that hope as well. Lately, we live in a world that is constantly encouraging us to move faster, to do more, to consume more, to achieve more, and to push harder. And many people are quietly exhausted. From the outside, their lives look successful, with careers, families, responsibilities, and accomplishments, all their shiny little ducks in a pretty little row. But what most people don't see is that on the inside, there can be disconnect, overwhelm, depletion, and loneliness. Have you ever felt this way? Are you feeling this way now? If so, I want you to know that you are absolutely not alone. That's exactly why I wanted this first episode of the podcast to focus on burnout. Today's episode is called Part 1 of Why High Performers Burn Out: Reconnecting the Nervous System for Purpose and Peace. Today I want to talk about what burnout really is, why so many capable and caring people are finding themselves stuck in survival mode, and some practical ways to help people realize that you can have a healthy relationship with stress. Before we get into all of that, I think it's important to give some perspective on why this topic matters so much to me personally, and how I feel that I've been called to do this in the first place. Perhaps you can even relate to some of what I'm about to share with you. Not too long ago, I was living the kind of life that most people would consider normal. I was busy and productive and responsible. I had a career. I was always on the go with my son's sports and my job. I had a busy social calendar, and I was always solving problems. Well, everyone else's anyway. And I always seemed to be helping someone else just to show how valuable I was. I thought that doing all of this, staying busy and sacrificing my wants and needs for others, that someday they would do the same for me. I feel like I treated as being busy as a badge of honor. My whole life, I was the responsible one, the caregiver, the high achiever, and the parentified oldest daughter. Perhaps you can relate. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 5, and I was the kid who was always too curious and questioned everything, constantly into everything, and it seemed like I was always in trouble for something. Despite all of that, my mom tried to make sure I felt encouraged. One of the things that she used to say to me was, "You can do anything you set your mind to." I have an older brother and 2 younger sisters, and it was when I was 11 years old that my mom gave birth to my youngest sister. And at that point, our lives seemed to change forever. My mom fell into a deep postpartum depression and retreated to her bedroom for 2 full years. Yes, I said 2 full years. From that point on, I became mom, a cook, a maid, and the emotional support for my family. My stepfather lost his father at that time, who he was close to, and he fell into his own depression and was rarely present. Looking back, I believe that this was the beginning of my nervous system overload. I was just a kid managing a family, household, school, extracurricular activities, and sports. Even when my mom finally came out of her room, she rarely left the house and never cared to resume her role in housekeeping and most of the caregiving for my younger sisters. In a sense, I became a mother at the age of 11. For the next 3 decades, I kept that pace. I thought it was normal. I met someone just as ambitious as I was. Not only did we create a family, but we started business after business, everything from a restaurant to construction and HVAC companies to a hookah lounge and a pawn shop. With every business, we gave 110%. All of them were successful, and most of them received awards from our community. But what people couldn't see was how our home life was going. I was working 80 plus hours a week. I barely saw my husband and kids, and I had no idea of the impact that was having on them at the time. People would ask me how things are going, and the answer would always be the same. I was always busy. I was really good, but busy. And somehow being busy felt really important to me. It felt productive, and I felt like I was actually accomplishing something. What I didn't realize at the time is that I had become so wrapped up into who I thought I wanted to be as a business owner and this leader that I really got disconnected from myself, like who I truly was, and I didn't even know who I was anymore. It wasn't intentional though. I feel like this is how it happens for a lot of people though. You get focused on taking care of everything and everyone else. You're meeting your deadlines, you're paying your bills, showing up to work, trying to support your family, doing all the right things that society says makes you a good and successful person. But eventually you realize, like, when was the last time someone actually asked me how I was doing before they made another request of me? And for that matter, when was the last time I even checked in with myself to ask, how am I really doing? Not how's the job or business or how do I appear to others, but like, how am I really? I had what I like to call a functional breakdown from all of the stress. It almost broke my marriage. I was still showing up for work and going through the motions and smiling at customers, but inside, I was hollow. I was numb to everything. And my story wouldn't be complete without this next part, so just hang in there with me. Rather than turning to yet another bad habit to fill that hollowness and that void within me, something inside me called me to start reading the Bible. I wasn't raised religious in any capacity, but I always felt a strong pull to want to know more about God. I found comfort and purpose and encouragement in the words of the Bible. And that all seems great until I realized it was creating a problem. I was already working 80 hours a week, and then I would spend my free time reading the Bible, which took even more time away from my marriage and family. I felt guilty at first, but I prayed about it for a really long time. Eventually, I had a serious conversation with my husband about my faith and about Jesus being a part of my life, now and forever. He was uncomfortable with the idea, and he was kind of hurt, obviously, because when your spouse of 10 plus years puts anything above you or between you, you feel betrayed because he is human after all. But then, to my absolute amazement and surprise, he said, okay, if you're doing this, I'm doing it with you. I was surprised and relieved. I loved my husband and I never want to live without him, but I knew that Jesus was going to be a part of my life, whether he felt the same or not. In this experience and this very difficult conversation, God delivered his grace to us, blessing our marriage. It's continued to be a work in progress, but our marriage has become better and better, week after week, month after month, and year after year. That conversation was over 10 years ago. At that time, we made a decision to sell all of our businesses except for the HVAC company. And despite all of this, I had still not learned my lesson on how to slow down when it came to work and people pleasing. 2020 was a life-altering year for the world because of COVID-19. But for me, I had my own personal nightmare. I had a life-threatening infection in my colon and ended up in the ICU during the lockdowns. In a span of just 4 months, I had 2 major surgeries and even blood transfusions. There was even a time after my second surgery when the doctor snuck my husband and my youngest son into the ICU to see me because my prognosis was that poor. That could have been the last time I saw them. I was so sick, I barely remember their visit. By this time, our older children had grown up and moved out, and it was just my husband and my youngest son at home. I did eventually recover, but I was never the same. Something from that experience changed in me, and despite my body screaming at me to slow down, I still did not listen. I could not shake the habit of needing to be busy and doing things for others. Just a few months later, my middle sister passed away. I don't think I even processed it all at the time. I was literally in shock. She was only 37 years old and left behind 3 boys. 2 of them went to live with their father, and my amazing brother adopted the 3rd. I threw myself back into work as soon as I could, managing my own company while also taking another job managing another large company. My body was screaming at me to slow down. I was in constant pain. I had constant systemic inflammation, and my face was always puffy. I never felt as if I had enough sleep, but I kept going anyway. I was very successful in my position at the other company, but the more I did, the more they kept demanding from me. Eventually, I went to management and I asked for more compensation for my performance, which had contributed greatly to their success. But they said it wasn't in their budget at the time. I went home that night and something in me literally just snapped. I felt like my entire system just shut down, and no matter what I did, I could not make myself go back to that job. So I didn't. The people pleaser in me felt so guilty. I felt I'd let everyone down, my employees, my clients, and my family. I just couldn't do it anymore. And only a week after I quit my job, I got another devastating blow. My mom died. This turned my burnout into a full-blown mental breakdown, compounded by grief, stress, and guilt. I isolated myself. I withdrew from everyone and everything except my house and necessary outings like errands and my son's school sports events. Through it all, though, my husband was there, and even though he didn't know how to help or support me, he did try. Going through experiences like this changes your perspective. At least it did for me. I began asking myself some deeper questions. What really matters? What am I really chasing? What am I sacrificing in the process? What does a meaningful life actually look like? And perhaps most importantly, what does it mean to actually be healthy? Before that experience, if someone had asked me about health, I probably would have talked about, diet and exercise and weight and medical tests and physical symptoms. Living through all of this, though, really helped me to expand my understanding of what it truly means to live a healthy life. I began to look at health as something that wasn't just physical. True health is emotional, mental, relational, and absolutely spiritual. It's having the ability to recognize and adapt, to recover and connect, to find meaning and then try to experience joy, whatever that means for you. All of these realizations eventually led me down a path of studying integrative wellness, stress, physiology, nervous system regulation, meditation, spirituality, and many factors that contribute to human flourishing. As part of my spiritual journey, I decided to go to Bible school and received a bachelor's degree in biblical ministry. This was a great accomplishment for me, but I still wanted more. So I went back to school to receive my degree in integrative medicine and Ayurveda. Not just to have another accomplishment to add to my list of things that I've done, but I wanted to truly do something for myself that can also help others. I began to learn many things about myself, physically, mentally, and psychologically. I never grew out of ADHD from my childhood. I had just mastered the ability to mask it in public. And this is what led to my nervous system being stuck in fight or flight for decades, and I didn't even know it. Most of us don't know until it almost ruins us. Through my studies, I learned a lot about biology, psychology, consciousness, human potential, physics, spirituality, and more. Going back to school actually became therapy for me. I learned so much about myself, my body, and my mind, which really seemed to start to put things into perspective for me. And eventually, I sought professional help. Finally. I was re-diagnosed as an adult with ADHD and discovered that I'm also a high IQ autistic. I don't know why, but I was actually offended for a moment when I learned all of this. But then I started to remember all of the things I had learned, and suddenly it clicked for me. why I've always been socially awkward unless I was masking and performing, why I preferred solitude and small circles, why I felt most comfortable with books and facts rather than small talk and constant social activity. I always knew that I felt different from a lot of people. I just always thought there was something wrong with me. In reality, there's nothing wrong with me. I've just never had the chance to truly understand myself. I was no longer a mystery. I now understand my actions and thought processes. This had been the most empowering experience of my entire life. I finally felt like I knew who I was. Now I had to know who I was to become. For the first time in my life, I finally felt safe. I remember having this realization for the first time and thinking to myself, so this is what a regulated nervous system is supposed to feel like. I became so overwhelmed with gratitude for being able to see things from this perspective. I now carry a constant attitude of gratitude. I've learned that life is too short for anything else. And this is where I am today. I truly believe that my purpose, my calling, is to use my experiences and what I have learned to learn how to help others, to offer support and provide information that I didn't have access to when I needed it most. And as for today, that includes helping other people identify warning signs within themselves before they become emergencies. It fascinates me how many people lived like I did. How many people struggle for so long before a major health crisis occurs. The signs are there. The body and the mind are screaming. Life is sending signals. If people had check engine lights, we would be lit up like a Christmas float. But many people are too busy to listen, including myself. And this is what burnout often looks like. It's not one sudden event. It's a gradual process that could have been building over many years, even starting in childhood. Burnout doesn't happen because you're weak and not because you're incapable. In many cases, burnout happens because you are overcapable, because people depended on you and you're the responsible one, because you're the one who keeps going when everyone else seems to stop. You've become so good at pushing through discomfort and pain that you no longer recognize when you are approaching your own limits. And our culture often rewards this behavior. We celebrate the hustle and productivity and being available 24/7. We celebrate sacrifice, but rarely does anyone actually show us how to recover and rest and reset. There are so few resources telling us how to recognize when our nervous systems have been operating in survival mode for far too long. One of my favorite quotes that I used as a mantra for a long time is that givers have to learn when to stop because takers never will. Think about how often people ask each other this question. How are you? Most of the time, we're on auto response. It's like, I'm good, or I'm fine, just staying busy, you know how it is. These are all valid responses because nobody wants to just open themselves up to everybody. I'm also a firm believer that we are capable of speaking things and circumstances into existence. But at some point, we have to be honest with ourselves. We rarely stop long enough to answer honestly, and sometimes we don't even know what the honest answer would be. We become disconnected from our own internal experience. We become experts at functioning, but not necessarily experts at feeling. That distinction is important because functioning and thriving are not the same thing. You can be successful and still be burned out. You can be surrounded by people and still be lonely. You can be busy and still be completely unfulfilled. Many people spend years living in that space, just like I did, like you could be doing right now. And because we continue functioning, everyone just assumes we're doing okay. We even convince ourselves that we're fine. We've never asked for help before, and why would we start now? Until one day, our body says otherwise, or a relationship says otherwise, or a major life event forces you to pause and reevaluate. The truth is that our bodies are constantly communicating with us. It can feel like fatigue, tension, poor sleep, digestive issues, and it can even include a feeling of dread at the thought of things you once loved. And we can also chalk it up to anxiety or hormones, especially for women, because that's what so many of our providers are telling us. But we know that underneath it all is a growing sense that something still feels off. These are messages from our own bodies and systems that we've been taught to ignore. And the sooner we learn to listen, the better our chances are going to be of creating meaningful change before a crisis jumps in and forces us to. Let's talk a little bit about why this all happens, because understanding the problem is often the first step towards solving it. One of the most important things that I've learned is that the human body is incredibly intelligent. Your body is always paying attention. It is constantly scanning your environment and asking a simple question: am I safe? Most of us think that stress is purely psychological. We think that stress is something that happens in our minds. But stress is actually a full body experience. When your brain perceives a threat, whether it's a dangerous situation, financial pressure, relationship conflict, health concerns, work deadlines, or even an overwhelming schedule, it activates a survival response. And this is what we call fight or flight response system. This response is designed to protect us. It's not a flaw or a malfunction. It's a hardwired program that protects us from the threat of predators or dangerous situations. It's one of the reasons humans have survived for thousands of years. The problem is that our nervous systems were only really equipped to handle short-term stressors. A threat appears, we respond, and the threat passes. And then we recover. But today, many of the threats that we experience don't just go away. It's not like we ran away from a predator and now we're just safely back at our cave. That email is still waiting to be sent. The bills still need to be paid this month. Family issues are still unresolved. The uncertainty remains and pressure builds. Because the stress never truly ends, many people never fully recover. Their bodies become accustomed to operating in a state of heightened alertness, and their nervous systems become stuck at full throttle. I think many people have become so accustomed to stress that they don't even realize how stressed they actually are. It becomes their baseline. They've either forgotten what calm feels like, or like in my case, I never knew what it felt like in the first place. Because it either begins at a young age or could happen gradually, people don't recognize it's happening until something finally gets their attention, something big. Let's talk about some of the signs that you could be living in a chronic stress burnout without fully realizing it yourself. The first sign is usually exhaustion that does not improve with rest. You can sleep, take a day off, you can try to relax, but you still feel depleted. This can look like not being able to sleep at night, but then falling asleep during the day while you should be awake doing other things. And this is where a lot of people become overly dependent on caffeine or other types of stimulants. The second sign is irritability. Small things that normally wouldn't bother you suddenly feel overwhelming. You find yourself reacting more intensely than you used to. You feel guilty for snapping at your spouse, children, or coworkers. And sometimes you don't even recognize yourself in those reactions. The third sign is brain fog. It begins to become difficult to concentrate. For neurodivergent individuals with ADHD like myself, this is further compounded because we become stuck in executive dysfunction, knowing what needs to be done, but absolutely paralyzed about where to begin, so we do nothing, and the cycle repeats. The fourth sign is emotional numbness. You're not necessarily sad, you just don't feel much of anything. The things that used to excite you or even upset you don't even seem to matter that much anymore. The fifth sign is difficulty relaxing, and this one kind of surprises people. You finally get your time off, and instead of feeling relaxed, you feel restless. You don't know how to slow down, and you tend to feel guilty when you're not being productive. The sixth sign is disconnection from purpose. You keep doing the work, you keep showing up, but you're starting to lose sight of why. Why am I even still trying, and what is the point of any of this? The seventh sign is feeling like you're constantly behind. Like no matter how much you accomplish, it never feels like enough. If any of these resonated with you, just know that you're not alone. And in fact, I would suspect that many people listening right now are nodding their heads because this isn't rare anymore. It's become so common in our society that while everyone is looking for the next quick fix, nobody's really taking it as seriously as they should. This is one of the main reasons why I wanted to create this podcast. I believe we need more conversations about what it means to truly live well, not just through performance or achievement, but to truly feel fulfilled and grateful every single day. This brings me to what I call the Better Life Path philosophy. And no, I don't claim to have all of the answers. I'm still learning. I will forever be learning. I could get some things wrong, but I promise that when presented with new information, I can and will change my mind accordingly, and I will tell you all about it. I'm still growing and figuring things out just like everyone else, but over the years, I've noticed some pretty interesting things. Most wellness advice focuses on a single piece of the puzzle. One person focuses on nutrition, and another focuses on exercise. The next is going to focus on your mindset or spirituality, and another one is going to talk to you about productivity. And while all of these things do matter, human beings aren't made up of isolated parts. We're whole people: mind, body, heart, relationships, purpose, spirit, energy, frequency, and vibration. It's all connected. When one area suffers long enough, the others are eventually going to feel the impact. This is why I believe wellness has to be approached more holistically. A healthier life isn't built through a single miracle solution, but it's built through many small decisions that support the whole person, like how you eat. You wouldn't put the wrong fuel in your car and call it good enough, and very soon the car would cease to function. The same is true for our physical and our mental health. Sleep is more important than most people understand. Our bodies work hard while we sleep. Our main systems need to be offline, so to speak, so that our regenerative functions can take place. Movement is good for both our bodies and our minds. When we engage in movement, our muscles produce a signal that can reduce stress. Being aware of how we think and how we speak has a massive impact on our health. Our bodies listen to every word we say. When we say, "I am," what follows that has a great potential to manifest. Instead of saying, "Oh, I am so exhausted," how about saying, "I think I need a little more rest"? Be careful what comes after the words "I am." Some follow it with words like sick, tired, stressed, angry, broke, or even frustrated. And while all those may in fact be your truth, they can be changed. Another thing my mom used to say is, if you don't have anything nice to say, then keep it to yourself. And this practice isn't only good social advice, but it's also very important to apply it to yourself and how you talk to yourself and about yourself. Taking time to identify your stress triggers is also really important. Pay attention to how you spend your time and who you spend your time with. Do those activities and people really further your growth and your healthy mindset? Or could they actually be part of the problem? What meaning do you assign to your experiences? Do you identify with your trauma, your conditions, or your situation? Let's try to change that identity to the belief that those experiences may have helped to shape who you are today in terms of experience, but they are not who you are. What you tell yourself and how you treat yourself and what you feel that you deserve for yourself all matter very much. One of the most profound realizations I've had is that healing and growth rarely happen in dramatic moments. We all love a good dramatic story. We love overnight transformations and before and after pictures. Instant gratification has become part of our culture thanks to video editing and instant social media posts. But real change is usually quieter than that. It's little steps like just choosing to go for a walk, maybe turning off your phone an hour earlier at night. It's learning actually how to say no and when you need to say no. Setting boundaries while also learning how to ask for help is one of the hardest things that high-achieving people pleasers could ever do. As the saying goes, you really can't pour from an empty cup. Small changes with profound impact can include things like just spending 10 minutes in prayer, meditation, or quiet reflection. getting outside, even if it's just to sit in your chair for a while in peace. It's doing small things consistently. Remember, small steps still lead to many miles. And that's the purpose of this podcast. I mean, it's certainly not perfection or becoming a different person. It's recognizing that you're not where you want to be and making these small efforts for change that lead to profound results. Now I want to talk about a few things that, if we're aware of them, we can change for the good. A small but impactful way that we can help regulate ourselves in minutes is by simply breathing. I know it sounds really simple, but breathing is one of the few processes in the body that is both automatic and voluntary. You can influence it intentionally. When we're stressed, our breathing often becomes shallow and rapid. When we slow the breath, we communicate safety to our nervous system. Even just a few minutes of intentional breathing can create meaningful changes. It's a small practice that has a positive impact on us both physically and mentally. We live in a world filled with noise, notifications, television, social media, and constant input, and sometimes the most healing thing we can do is create space. This can look like putting your phone away for a set amount of time or spending 10 to 20 minutes in silence or guided meditation. Nature has always been restorative for me, and combining it with stillness is an excellent means of regulation. Whether it's sitting under a tree or walking on a trail, watching a sunrise or sunset, nature reminds me that there is still a rhythm to life. Nature also reminds all of us that we, as humans, also have cycles and seasons. Some seasons are cold and dry, and others are warm and bright. And like nature, maybe we don't need to rush quite so much either. As human beings, we are wired for connection. Even a solitude-seeking neurodivergent like myself needs connection. Healthy relationships help to regulate your nervous system. The act of being seen, heard, and understood matters more than we often realize. Having a purpose is also important. So many of us feel like that we're aimlessly wandering through existence, especially these days when we really don't seem to have a village to belong to anymore. And this in itself can feel depressing. Having a purpose doesn't eliminate your hardship, but it does change your relationship with the hardship. A purpose gives direction and creates meaning. It reminds us why we're moving forward. And meaning is one of the most powerful antidotes to burnout. Purpose goes hand in hand with gratitude. It's easy to look at our lives and feel discontent with so many things. But I challenge you to begin looking at things through a different lens. The next time you're overwhelmed with work or your spouse and your children, think about how you would feel if you suddenly lost it all. Despite the stress that a spouse and kids can cause, they are also our greatest joy. When you feel stressed or overwhelmed with them, take a moment to appreciate that some people long for the very life that you're living right now. The beauty of life is that if you don't like something, you can change it. It may be scary, difficult, or even seem extreme, but it can be done. Let me share another quote that has pulled me through a lot of scary situations. This quote can apply to life changes, new jobs, even going to the dentist or skydiving. It is multi-purpose encouragement. Are you ready? Okay, here it is. You have to want it more than you're afraid of it. You have to want it more than you are afraid of it. As we begin wrapping up today's episode, I'd like to leave you with a short reflection. If you're driving, simply listen, and if you're somewhere quiet, maybe take a slow breath. Just for a moment, pause and ask yourself, what has my body been trying to tell me lately? What signals have I been ignoring? Where am I carrying the stress that no longer serves me? What is currently draining my energy? What is restoring my energy? Have I been living intentionally, or am I simply reacting to whatever comes next? What would it look like to offer myself the same compassion that I so freely offer to others? Or to finally set boundaries that allow me to put myself first? And perhaps most importantly, What is one small step I can take this week toward a healthier, more meaningful life? Nothing dramatic, not a full-blown reinvention, just one little step, one choice, one action. Lasting change isn't built overnight. It's built one decision at a time, one day at a time, one step at a time. Drop by drop, you refill your cup. Thank you for joining me today for this first episode of Better Life Path. Launching this podcast feels like opening up my front door and inviting people inside. I've shared experiences today that some of the people closest to me have never heard before. But it's exciting and meaningful, and yeah, it's still a little vulnerable. But I wanted to share it more than I was afraid of it, and I'm so grateful that you're here. This was a small introduction into my experiences and how I became somebody who wanted to help others by overcoming my own obstacles. In the future, this podcast will focus on specific topics and discussions grounded in scientific and philosophical frameworks. Not only will we identify areas that we want to improve, but we're also going to learn the science and the statistics behind how it all works. My hope is that this podcast becomes a place where we can all learn together and grow together and explore what it means to create a healthier, more meaningful life. If today's episode resonated with you, I would love for you to follow the show, leave us a review, leave us a comment, and share it with somebody who might benefit from this conversation as well. You can learn more about my work, upcoming resources, and the mission behind the Better Life Path at betterlifepath.org. Currently, you can find the Better Life Path podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, with Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube Music coming soon. And before we go, I want to leave you with a little glimpse of what's coming next, because next time we're going to dive even deeper. Many people don't realize they're living in survival mode, and they think they're just tired because they're so busy, or they simply just need that vacation. But what if the issue goes deeper than that? What if your survival mode is quietly affecting your relationships, your health, your decision making, your energy levels, and even your ability to experience joy? In our next episode, we're going to explore the hidden costs of living in survival mode. We'll uncover how chronic stress reshapes the way we think, feel, and interact with the world, and most importantly, what we can do to break free from it. A better life isn't built in a single breakthrough moment. It's built through intentional choices, repeated day after day. I'm Melanie Vee. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of Better Life Path.